All right, today we're going to dig into a really interesting way to think about investing for the AI era. We're talking about a strategy that totally ignores the day-to-day hype and instead tries to build a portfolio that's set up for the next decade.
So, you know the conversations around AI investing. They're all about these kinds of questions, right? Which stock is going to pop next month? Is the bubble about to burst? But the strategy we're looking at today asks something completely different. It's not about finding the next hot stock. It's about figuring out what the actual foundation of the whole AI era is going to be.
And that's the core idea right there. Forget trying to guess what the market's going to do tomorrow. This whole approach is about identifying those fundamental pillars, the real infrastructure that the entire AI revolution is going to be built on for years to come.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We're going to move beyond all that day-to-day noise and really look at the big picture here, which is building a portfolio based on an entire system, not just picking a few trendy stocks. So the core logic is actually pretty simple, but it's huge when you think about it. The bet is that AI isn't just another product. Nope, it's going to become a fundamental utility, just like electricity or the internet are for us today. And if that's the case,
well, you wouldn't just invest in a single toaster, would you? No, you'd want to own a piece of the entire electrical grid.
So how do you actually build this grid? Well, let's start with the offense. This is the engine that's supposed to power the whole system forward. This is the part of the portfolio that's really designed for aggressive growth.
And this engine isn't just one single piece. It's actually made up of two critical parts, two different layers that work together. You've got the heart, which is all about the raw power, and then you have the nerve center, which is where the intelligence comes from.
Okay, first up, the heart. This is all about the pure brute force of computing power. And in this layer, you find the companies that are actually creating and building the advanced chips that AI needs to exist. We're talking about players like NVIDIA and TSMC. You can think of them as the essential power plants for this whole new digital age.
yeah, and I love this way of looking at them. They're described as both alchemists and tax collectors. Kind of cool, right? They're alchemists because they perform this incredible magic of turning silicon into intelligence. And they're tax collectors because they basically get to collect a little toll on almost every single AI transaction that uses their hardware. So as long as the demand for computing keeps going up, they're in a really, really strong position.
Okay, so we have the raw power, right? The beating heart of the whole system. But all that power is pretty useless if you don't have any intelligence to direct it. So that brings up the obvious next question: where's the brain? And that, of course, brings us to the nerve center. This is the layer that's all about the big models themselves. Think Google, think OpenAI. These are the companies that are basically defining the absolute limits of what AI can even do, and maybe even more importantly, they're the ones designing how we all interact with this new intelligence.
Okay, so having a powerful heart and a brilliant brain, that's fantastic. But the real test for this whole system isn't what it can do inside a computer or on a screen. It's about what it can do out there, in the physical world.
And this is where we get to what might be the most surprising piece of this whole strategy. I mean, given what we've talked about so far, you probably wouldn't guess this, but the single largest holding in this portfolio is Tesla. So why?
Well, the thinking goes like this. The end game for AI isn't just about making cool images or writing emails for us. The real, world-changing value gets unlocked when AI can actually perceive the world, make decisions, and then act in the physical world. The big game is shifting from the digital to the physical.
And this is exactly where Tesla's big advantage supposedly lies. It's one of the very few companies that has this whole closed-loop system running at a massive scale. So step one is perception. It uses its own custom chips and this insane amount of real-world road data. Step two is decision. Its AI models chew on all that data and decide what to do. And finally, step three is execution. The cars, and eventually the Optimus robots, actually do things. It's the whole shebang, from the silicon chip all the way to the street.
Okay, so that's the offense. It's all about high growth and, yeah, high risk. But any good team needs a solid defense. If you're going to bet this big on a massive technological shift, you absolutely have to have some powerful defenses in place to protect against all the things that could go wrong. So the defense in this portfolio is also built in two layers. First, you've got what are called the goalkeepers. These are companies with these deep structural moats, basically advantages that make it super hard for competitors to catch up. And then, second, you have the macro shield, which is designed to protect against the big, scary, market-wide shocks.
So let's take a look at these goalkeepers. You've got a company like Palantir. What they do is embed their AI so deep into the operations of governments and huge companies that it becomes almost impossible to rip them out. The switching costs are just enormous. Then you have a totally different kind of company, like MP Materials. They control a critical choke point in the supply chain, the raw materials you absolutely need to build all that AI hardware we were just talking about.
But look, having these company-specific moats, that's not always enough. I mean, what happens if there's some huge geopolitical crisis or a financial panic that just tanks the entire tech sector? That's where that second line of defense, the macro shield, is supposed to come in.
And this is a perfect picture of the barbell strategy in action. On one side of the barbell, you have all those high-risk, high-reward bets on the future of AI. And on the complete opposite side, you have the stability of something like precious metals, an asset that represents the known, tried-and-true value of history.
And it's really important to get this. The macro shield isn't there to make you rich. That's not its job. Its job is to be a shock absorber. So when that tech-heavy offensive side of the portfolio takes a nosedive because of some broad market panic, this side is designed to hold steady and cushion the blow.
All right, let's just zoom out one last time and really nail down the big picture philosophy here. This is not a strategy for next quarter or even next year. This is a bet on an entire era.
And we've got to be crystal clear about this. This is not a safe path. Not at all. The companies we're talking about are super volatile. It could take way longer than anyone thinks for them to really succeed commercially. This portfolio basically says, yep, we accept that risk, because it's a necessary part of betting on such a massive historical shift and how the world is going to operate.
And this quote, I think, just sums it all up perfectly. The goal isn't to get lucky and pick one or two winning apps. No. The goal is to own a piece of the entire underlying operating system of the AI era, the power plants, the brain, the hands and feet, and the defensive walls. All of it.
And so that leaves us with this one big, powerful question to think about. It's not about whether you're right tomorrow or next week. It's about whether a framework like this, a way of understanding the AI revolution, will end up being on the right side of history 10 years from now. I guess only time will tell.